Hello, welcome, and sorry. Happy Friday, everybody. My name is Jor. I'm joined by my good friends Forrest, Rajat. Happy Friday. I got a Guinness right beside me here, and we are in for one heck of a show today, folks. How you doing, boys?
Doing well. Yeah. Excited
Having
with
fun.
this price action. It's nice to see Bitcoin pump a little bit, we had sideways and down action, and it's just nice to see it go up. I mean, I know it means stacking less sats with your income and all that, but I don't know. I felt like it was time. I felt like it was time for it to go up again.
How you feeling about it, Rajat?
I think Bitcoiners were right all along.
Yes.
I think we started the last couple streams with that. Turns out we were right about Bitcoin, and it just keeps getting, it keeps aging better and better. So hello,
Yeah.
everybody in the chat. Last week we asked everybody where you're from, and it looks like people have already caught up to that. It's amazing. I was going through the comments last week after the show, and I could not believe how many people around the world were tuned in at this time. Different times, different time zones, different parts. So just as a reminder here, folks, if you have any questions, we're going to spend some time like we always do at the end of the show. And where is that thing? If you have any questions, try to put them in caps. We might get to them either way. But if you want your message to stand out a little bit, you can put it on caps. You can send a super chat, or you can send a zap to the QR code right beside Forrest's head there. That is our Maple Bitcoin Fund. And if you're watching on your phone and you can't access your QR code, we have it right there for you. Maple Bitcoin at coinos.io. So that wallet will be open. We'll be checking the messages, checking the zaps. Where do you guys want to begin today?
Let's start with what's happening with Bitcoin. The 100K. I was looking at some of the ETF flows. It's crazy. They bottomed out. I think they bottomed out about 8 days before the bottom for Bitcoin's price, and then they just started the chart basically turned. Like if you go on Hey Apollo, have you guys seen that site? Let me share it here.
Hey, Apollo. No.
I love Hey Apollo. I feel like that's one of the most underrated resources for a Bitcoiner.
It's so useful. So this is the site here. If you go to flows, you can see here you can actually see how the purchases and sales are going, right? So you can see here it topped out around here February 4th, bottomed out. This is the total net BTC flows. Bottomed out March 13th, and then it basically turned around on April 15th. Now it's back up. Seems like a pretty clear trend.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much do you guys think the ETFs affect the price? I mean, obviously, since we've seen them come out, we've had this pretty great bull run. That was last January, not this one, but the one before that came out. But like their inflows are also somebody's outflows. So somebody's selling into that. So I just wonder, I mean, they've sucked up a lot of Bitcoin, but do you guys think that they have a major impact on Bitcoin's price?
Yeah,
definitely.
Go ahead.
It's kind of crazy to see between the ETFs, between even Sailor's buys. Like if you just looked at Sailor's average buys for the year 2025 so far, Strategy itself is buying more Bitcoin than has actually been mined. I'm pretty sure. I don't have the exact amount, but if it's not more, it's very close. And that's one corporation.
I think it's way more.
Yeah.
It's way okay. Yeah. That's what I thought. I just wasn't I wasn't prepared to be on the spot there.
But they have almost double what the next Epoch's production will be. So that's pretty crazy.
Like Strategy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like their total holdings compared to the 4 years after the next halving.
Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. That's so crazy.
They have doubled that. That's insane. It blows my mind.
So you got the ETFs, and you got I've been watching. We're going to talk a little bit about it today, the strategy world, which is a pretty big deal happening in the Bitcoin world right now. A very big deal, I think. But one thing that caught my attention was, we know Strategy was the first to implement the Bitcoin reserve, add Bitcoin to the balance sheet. But since then, since August 2020, there's been 70 public companies who have added Bitcoin to the balance sheet. 70. And I think that's just it's a good representation of where we are right now. I think it kind of shows where we're going to. That's not going to slow down. It's going to speed up. And it's going to be the exact same with Bitcoin businesses actually accepting Bitcoin. Did you guys see that Steak and Shake started accepting Bitcoin?
I saw that. Yeah.
I saw that too, it's actually huge. They have they serve, I think their metric was like 300,000 people.
100 million customers.
100 million customers, was it? Yeah, I mean, massive. Way more than I just said even. And then they have 300 something locations, I believe it was. Do you have that tweet up there, Jor?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. But yeah,
I can find
that's
it.
Huge. That's like the biggest news of medium of exchange in quite a long time, actually, for Bitcoin. And it's totally a lot more possible now because of Lightning. Like there was a lot of medium of exchange happening a lot earlier on with Bitcoin, but there was just a serious limitation with having it all as broadcast transactions on the Bitcoin network. With layer 2's Lightning, it just makes so much more sense to be able to just buy a burger and use the Lightning network.
Yeah.
So the other big one was that Spar supermarket. They were in Switzerland, I believe. And I think they did a couple stores. It might have been 1 or 2. And then they actually announced last week that they're actually going to be adding more. It was a successful pilot or a launch. But Steak and Shake, their tweet this morning said that they're rolling it out at all of their locations.
Yeah. Amazing. 100 million customers. May 16th. I mean, I wish we had one in Canada. I don't know if we have them anywhere in Canada, but I'd go spend some Bitcoin for sure. 100%. Tallow fries, hell yeah.
Well, look at it says Bitcoin. Oh, it says steak Toshi. I like that. Steak Toshi. But another thing here, it says the movement is just beginning. And that's absolutely right. Because we've seen Strategy was the first 70 public companies 4 years later. But think about how much more work it is for a public company to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And look how fast that accelerated. Like for a business, especially like a smaller business, it's not that much. It doesn't take much to start accepting Bitcoin nowadays. So I think this is just the beginning, and it's just going to be exponentially higher in a couple years from now, which is going to be good for the MOE.
Yeah,
I think that's what's gonna bring a lot of small businesses into competition with all these big businesses, right? So these small businesses can accumulate Bitcoin without having to go to their shareholders for permission, and they can eventually keep saving and saving, and then they can create something of value that can compete with, let's say, Microsoft or Apple or all these other companies, and then they could just take over the market, right? And that could be Bitcoin that's doing that for them.
100%. Yeah. And we've seen this as well, like this Jory, you talked about the Bitcoin treasury companies. Like literally we're seeing a new one every other day. 21 Capital was a big announcement because everybody knows Jack Mallers, but the new one here, Asset, is the ticker ASST. They're like a small penny stock company that does like TikTok videos and marketing for companies. And anyway, they're being bought by Strive Capital, which is the ETF issuer, backed by, or it's like co-founded by Vivek Ramaswamy. Peter Thiel's involved in that. There's like 4 different billionaires that are a part of that company that's backing it. And the CEO of Strive, his entire business plan is to turn Asset into a Bitcoin treasury company and then go find public companies or private companies that they have more cash on their balance sheet than their market cap, which there's all these companies that are like distressed in some way, and they actually have more cash than they're worth on the open market. And they're just going to buy all these small companies and immediately use the cash and buy a Bitcoin with it, and therefore raising the value of all of these companies they're buying. Like it's insane. So like that alone, that company out that could just one after another just turn these small businesses or relatively small businesses into Bitcoin treasury companies. Like it could seriously accelerate with that business plan.
Wow. That's nuts. Rajat, can you bring that up one more time? Because I think this is important too. There's the 100 million customers, every location. They got beef tallow, which I think is also another growing trend here within the food world, because a lot of these fast food chains are using seed oil still. But look at how many people saw this tweet. Scroll down a bit there, Rajat.
Oh, this is the so I could only find a screenshot from Bitcoin Magazine, and the Bitcoin Magazine one got 87.8K.
This one, when I looked at it this morning, I think it was over 600,000. I'll just bring it up here quickly. Where is it? Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake, baby.
151,000 on Steak and Shake's original post.
What was it, Forrest?
851,000 views.
850.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
That alone, right? Other companies are going to see that and be like, whoa, Steak and Shake just got all this free marketing from just accepting Bitcoin. It's not that hard to accept Bitcoin. Let's do it.
I want to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do it too. And then maybe we can get some free marketing just from doing so.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer at this point, and that's kind of, it seems like a lot of Bitcoiners are wondering, when this thing is going to turn into a medium of exchange. And I really think it's going to be driven by the business owners, because business owners are going to start to see what's happening here. They're going to see the free marketing that these companies are getting from Bitcoin. That's going to be an obvious one. They can also save on their merchant fees, also reduces the chargebacks. It's also instant settlement. There's a ton of these reasons. But when they realize that the fiat dollar, that's going to be their first gateway into the Bitcoin stuff, but then they're going to see how useless and illusionary the dollars are. So we're going to go from businesses accepting Bitcoin to businesses demanding Bitcoin. And I think that that's going to be when that's when it becomes a medium of exchange, I think.
Can we talk about the other side of the equation? Why would companies not want to accept it? Is it fear?
I think it's perceived difficulty and potentially like employee turnover and additional employee training, accounting difficulties as well, potentially. So I think it's just like systems. I think it's just, and it's also like with businesses, you have to, they're focused on operations, and they think, okay, is this worth doing? It becomes that becomes the first question. Is this worth doing? And if we see that Steak and Shake becomes more successful because of that, then that question becomes answered for a lot of businesses. Like it does become like a domino effect, I think.
Yeah, and it's just going to become easier and easier too. Like that was one of the things that Jack Mahler said a couple months ago. Somebody was asking him about paying bills with Strike and the tax implications of that. He said, basically, just do what you normally do. If you're making money, that's a good thing. If you're paying capital gains, that means you've won. Like, what's the alternative there? Not pay tax and just continue to lose purchasing power? But he also said, like, at the end of the year, Strike's actually now set up where they can just send a simple tax document to the users, and that's basically what they give to their accountant. So I feel like in terms of businesses, it's going to be the exact same. These systems are going to be put in place where it's no different. It's nothing that the business has to do differently. They just get a document showing the gains that they maybe made on the Bitcoin if they swap it back into fiat. But like, how could you ask for anything more than, selling your products and services and getting Bitcoin straight to your wallet? You don't have to go through the banking system anymore. You don't have to wait anymore. There's no risks anymore. It's just straight non-KYC Bitcoin. I mean, especially for smaller businesses, but like, that's the dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that this makes me think of is btcmap.org is going to just start getting crowded. Like all of ShakePay's businesses are going to be on there. It's going to be wild. It's yeah, I don't know. This is the start of something bigger. It's like George said, it's just going to become easier and easier to do this. There's going to be companies, they can swap it back to fiat if they need to cover operations with it. Yeah, there'll be tax implications, but if there is capital gains, that means that they've not only made profit from selling something, but then they've also made profit from an appreciating asset compared to the fiat that they would have gotten to begin with. So capital gains is really not a bad thing. It just creates an accounting headache for some people, or, like it's not even a headache, just an added complexity to accounting. But these people or these companies likely already have business accountants and can handle all that. That's not really an issue. So yeah, it just gets easier and easier.
Yeah. I want to bring this up here just after that point was made. I thought that was great. I feel like that was so useful. Knowing about Steak and Shake, more people know we can sell Bitcoin, or we can use our Bitcoin to buy the burgers. And now this is another reason to buy Bitcoin. So
Huge
I don't know if you
reason.
guys saw this.
Yeah.
Spain is making it so that you can't take out more than $3,000, and if you do, you have to let regulators know about the transaction, and if you don't, then you can get fined.
You need permission. You need permission to use euros, basically, and that permission can be taken away from you if you don't do what they say. You're going to get fined. I mean, this is just crazy. I mean, how many times, like, you know, I had to deposit some cash in my bank the other day, and they asked me, "Oh, where did this come from?" You know, it's like, why are you asking me that? Like, are you serious? Like, you know, like, what am I going to say? I'm selling drugs on the street corner. Like, you know, like, who is that catching anyway? Who, like,
Yeah.
it's not catching anybody. I don't know. It's just crazy.
I feel like all those anti-money laundering things are all kind of the same. Like it does not, same with like the gun laws. Like it doesn't actually stop criminals from committing crimes. It just, you know, intrudes on your privacy. So I agree. I've been asked that question before. Where'd you get this money from? It's like it was like $1,000. I think it's like I don't know. I won a golf tournament. Like leave me alone. I'm not even if I even if I did do something with it, I'm not going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
There's like trained dummies sitting there behind the desk. So I don't know. It'll change eventually. It's just kind of weird that we're going through this phase right now where you know we see the better alternative, but like the majority of people are still living in that caveman society. It's a weird time to be alive, I think, for a Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the price going up makes it harder for people to ignore it. The adoption of, you know, the SBR in New Hampshire, Steak and Shake accepting it. I mean, all these news stories, Bitcoin above 100K, going up and up, you know, vice president talking at the Bitcoin conference, right? It's just like, yeah, you can't keep ignoring it. Fifth biggest asset in the world, you know, past Amazon, right? It's just like, what are you doing ignoring this? That's so crazy. And it still has so much more room to grow. And I think that's probably the first thing people see when they see all these prices. They think, whoa, that's super inflated. Like that's just a giant bubble. But then if you actually start getting into it, you're like, no, actually, this is the needle popping the bubble of fiat. Everything else is inflated. And this is just catching up to its actual value.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And if you think about it, even with, I was looking at, for example, Berkshire, all the value that Warren Buffett created over the last like 50 years has been surpassed by Bitcoin in 15 years. All of the value that was created in silver over the last however long, thousands
Forever.
of years,
Yeah.
has been surpassed by Bitcoin. Soon we're going to see it surpass gold, Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft. And people are still going to say it's a scam.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's pretty big news though, for real. Like going back to the Sailor presentation, that was one thing that really threw me for a loop. Is Sailor loves showing the chart from when they implemented the Bitcoin strategy back in 2020, and I think it was something crazy like 1,800% or something. It might have been more than that. But then you look at Amazon since 2020, since that exact same time, and I know it's easy to cherry pick, but it's not really cherry picking because that's literally when they added Bitcoin to the balance sheet. That's the date that makes sense. But Amazon is up 19% since then. In almost 5 years, Amazon's up under 20%.
Imagine if Amazon had adopted the Bitcoin strategy plus been a very profitable business, even accepting it as a medium of exchange on their site to stack even more. I mean, they would be leagues above MSTR if they had just done that at the same time, because they would have had more cash on hand to buy Bitcoin. I mean, it's just a no-brainer, this strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of another theme too from the strategy world is like that's what he's been talking about. Is like Bitcoin is for people who need to know. And I feel like the people like Bezos, the people like Gates, the people like Nvidia, they don't need to know about Bitcoin yet because they have. I mean, they don't think they do. They do if they want to maintain where they are right now. But like billionaires, they're going to be fine regardless of how long they wait to get Bitcoin. They're still going to get a fair share of Bitcoin, not as much, obviously. But I think it's going to be the millionaires who actually suffer the most because they're used to being a millionaire. and they're going to be late to adopt. Not every millionaire is going to get to 1 Bitcoin, and they're going to feel like they've missed out. And I think that a lot of them already have. So it's being adopted by people who need to know, and people like Amazon, like Microsoft, they don't need to know right now because they're still fully involved and entrenched in the old system. And, you know, it's going to be pretty hard to take down an Amazon or a Microsoft, I think. But, you know, the more they wait, the longer they wait, the less they're going to get. So it's going to be crazy to see play out over the next couple of years between countries, companies. There's people watching this show right now who are going to have more Bitcoin than countries around the world right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
Sorry, let's we'll jump into this. We'll save the Q&A for later, but super chats get the attention. So Nav, a big supporter of the channel here. Nav, thoughts on starting a business versus stacking Bitcoin? Ooh, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Stacking seems like the better idea at this time because business is so risky and Bitcoin can give upside without risk. Rajat, make a spreadsheet on this.
The spreadsheet master. I have a few thoughts. Yeah, who wants to start on this one?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think if you're gonna start a business for yourself, I think it's worth it because you can easily, let's say Bitcoin's returns are gonna be 50-60%. In your first few years, you can easily grow your business by more than 50-60%. Right? If you put in, you can actually start a business by putting in no money at all. You could just put in your time, and the return on that time is literally infinite. So I think working on yourself, working on a business, building a skill is worth it. Even if you have to sell some Bitcoin. For example, I had to sell some Bitcoin to buy some of my equipment, and it's paid me back tenfold. I've made a lot more money on the equipment by creating videos, by posting them, than I would have by just holding Bitcoin.
I think it really does come down to the concept of time versus money. If you have a bunch of money, it might make sense to just buy Bitcoin instead of starting a business. But if you don't have time, right? But if you have time, you can put that time towards building a business that you can't put towards Bitcoin. Like you'd have to put that towards either working for somebody else and then buy Bitcoin with it, or you could put that time towards building a business that might pay, or that you might be able to acquire Bitcoin with later. And I'll just say, like, I started a business in 2016, and I also started getting involved in Bitcoin back then. And I traded a bunch of Bitcoin, thought I was a genius, made, a couple $1,000s, and I sold it all to invest in my business. And I've been running this business for 9 years now. And it's been great because I haven't had to work for anybody else, and I've had a lot of freedom and I've been able to pursue what I wanted to do. But I have, over that period, underperformed Bitcoin, probably.
Wow.
But I would have had to have had a different job, worked for somebody else. And if I put all that money into Bitcoin, then yeah, I would have definitely underperformed. But you still need to have income. So it's about balance as well, right? But yeah, it's really just about time, money, balance. These are the kind of things to think about. I think you maybe a hybrid, right? Stack a bunch of Bitcoin, and whatever left over, if you need money to invest in the business to begin with, then yeah, use some of it. And then you have a hybrid solution. You use Bitcoin as your treasury reserve, and you build a business on top of that with the time that you have.
I like what you said about balance. That's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what I would say too, is just understand where we are right now in terms of this opportunity here. I also left my job about 4 years ago now. And I will say that if I would have held out a little bit longer, there was other factors involved with my decision to leave work. But if I would have, the thing I would have done a little bit differently is I just would have worked a little bit longer. I would have, because when you stop, if you were to leave your job and start your own business, you're sacrificing a lot of sats with that. Because you're going to have to come up with some money. You're probably going to have to tap into your savings, maybe sell some of your Bitcoin. It's a lot. But at the same time, I think that even if you had 50 Bitcoin, if you're still going to work for somebody else every single day, I don't think that you have any sort of sovereignty there. And that's, for me anyways, I'm looking for financial freedom and freedom in life. And I think that you could have as much Bitcoin as you want to, but if you're still spending your time and energy working for somebody else, I don't think you're truly sovereign. So that would be kind of my advice, is kind of like you guys mentioned there, the hybrid model. I think that if you are at a job right now, I would stick it out, even if you're not having the most fun. You can keep buying stats at this price. It's not going to be this price forever. Who knows how long, but it's not going to be like this for very much longer. So what I would suggest there is keep working your job, keep stacking Bitcoin, take your mornings and nights. That's what I did when I was still working. Start building something in the background. And then when you're ready, you can take that leap and you're going to have some income coming in already. And you can, it's a much more gradual transition into that from my personal experience.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did as well with my business that I started. I was working 5 days a week, then I went down to 4 days a week, 3 days a week, and then I finally quit my job. And that I was working 5 days a week and had replaced my income with my business, but I was still stacking that income and just putting that in savings because I knew that my goal was to quit my job, go full time in my business, but I knew that income was unreliable with a business compared to the steady income. So, and again, yeah, weekends and afternoons or evenings, building the business, and then that extra day as I began to quit my job gradually.
Yeah, I think you also have to remember that every business, even if you do take off, it will probably be disrupted at some point, or you may not want to work in the business anymore. So I think they go hand in hand. So you can start the business and buy Bitcoin with the proceeds, because at some point your business is no longer going to be making as much money as it had in the past. So that Bitcoin is basically going to support you. If you want to continue with the business, I think a lot of people, I think one of the cool things is going to be that a lot of people who build businesses that have strong roots in the community are going to continue. If they stack Bitcoin, they're going to continue to survive because they just love what they're doing. They don't really care about making profits. I think that's one of the best things about Bitcoin, because you don't have to keep raising your prices. You don't have to keep charging people more and more. You can do it because you actually love doing it.
And that's a creativity and innovation unlock as well, by having that abundance mindset where you're not forced to, only create stuff for income, because like that's a super stressful situation to be in. And it totally limits what you'll end up doing in your business.
Yeah, and the one piece of advice that I would give to somebody who's thinking about starting a business is you should. I really think that in a decade from now, the corporate landscape as we know it today is going to look completely different. Like, let's say that there's 80% employees today, 20% small businesses. I think that's going to flip to be 20% employees and 80% people actually doing their own things. Just because of technology, the world is moving to a very decentralized world, and the work structure as we know it is going to be no different than that. The one thing that's really changed in the last 5 years since I've got more into Bitcoin is, when you start a business, you have this idea that you're going to run it for 5 years, you're going to promote it, you're going to make it worldwide as fast as you can, and then you're going to sell it. And then you're going to go to a beach and retire. And I think that that's everybody's dreams when they start. Very few people actually do that unless you're a tech startup or something, or, something very rare. But what I've changed it to be is just like focus on making really good products, focus on customer service, make the customers happy, and take a portion of your profits and put it into Bitcoin from day one, and have a very good understanding of what those numbers are in terms of what you're selling them for, what versus what it costs you, and what percentage minus taxes and other operating expenses that you can actually afford to put into Bitcoin. That's the best thing you're going to do. And you're going to basically be buying leverage into the future, because what you're sitting on today, if you hold on to that Bitcoin within your business and keep growing it over 10 years, that leverage is going to be beyond comprehension, I think, at this point. So that's what I would do, is really focus on the numbers and allocate some to Bitcoin.
Actually, something else that's really interesting is when you do dissolve the business, it'll be a lot easier to share the assets among the owners
with
because you
Bitcoin.
didn't give them Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And it's very transparent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no trust involved because everybody could have the wallet addresses.
Sorry, what were you going to say there, Forrest?
There's a lot of variables here. It depends on what kind of business. If you're building a business that has some sort of intellectual property, then maybe it could just have this semi-passive income stream, and then you just you don't have to ever dissolve the business, and you're just stacking. That's what I've done, right? I've created intellectual property with my business that gives me steady income. But it's taken years to do that. And it's depreciating because it's in fiat terms, even if the numbers stay the same. But because of Bitcoin, it can actually appreciate because I immediately put it into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin just changes a business. It's not either or. It's if you want to start a business, but include Bitcoin in that, and then you'll benefit. It's kind of as simple as that.
Yep. And the last thing I would say on it is I think you should also be thinking about the whole starting a business thing a little bit differently as well. The one thing that I would focus on is not so much looking for a specific industry that you can tap into in the traditional sense. What I would focus more on is understanding that look at sats as if they're dollars. That's basically what I've been doing for the last couple of years. And it's really changed my whole mindset in terms of doing things for fiat versus doing things for Bitcoin. And because I know what those sats are worth, and that's what I'm working for today. But instead of like having one thing in the traditional sense, like try to find as many different income streams as you possibly can. I think of it as like a wheel of income, and each stream that you have is a different, is more income. And you want to get as many different spokes on that wheel as possible. I heard that about 3 or 4 years ago as an analogy, and it's just stuck with me so much because the more spokes, it takes away your single point of failure. So if something were to happen to one of your streams of income, you still have 10 more. Whereas if you just have one job or one business and all of a sudden the industry changes or AI takes over that, you're screwed. Whereas if you focus on finding a whole bunch of these different ways to earn sats, a sats flow, then if one gets cut off, you still have 5, 10 more, and then you just keep adding to that. That's the advice that I got, and that's what's been working for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
we got a follow-up question from Nav there, another super chat. If we want to just
keep it going.
Some additional information that I think would be helpful. So business might not be profitable for a couple of years. Bitcoin price will be higher by then. You might only stack same amount of BTC if you just work a job. This is exactly what happened with my business, right? I would have been more profitable if I had just continued working and stacking Bitcoin. I didn't have that mentality back then. I was thinking of this as just some speculative trading kind of thing. So I didn't. That wasn't an option for me. If I kept working, I would have just stacked fiat because I didn't know any better. But that is a potential, right? Like, yeah, some businesses are capital intensive. Some businesses take a while to build up a foundation to get some sort of return on investment. Yeah, and in that case, maybe it does make more sense just to stack sats. But the future is never certain. I mean, you're taking a risk with either of these, but it's kind of more of like with a business, there is the possibility of more return, right? But you are thinking of trying to beat Bitcoin's return, which is already really high. And that's why this is such a good question, is because if you're investing in something like investing in your own business, the hurdle rate is Bitcoin's performance. But with small businesses, you can outperform that, especially in the first few years, because you have rapid growth. But is there so much capital intensity into the business that you want to start that maybe it doesn't make up for it because of the time that it's taken to build up a profitable business? I don't know. It's a really hard question in that sense, if it's not profitable from the get-go.
It really depends on the situation. I think it's very, very specific to what's going on, what kind of business it is. There are, like, let's say, for example, if you were to start a YouTube channel, that could probably be a very profitable business. And in the short term, you would definitely outperform against Bitcoin. And even in the long term, I think you would outperform against, if you're able to create good content, if you're able to keep creating content, I think you'd probably outperform against your job as well.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that's what people have to consider as well right now is like, it depends on the industry, I think. And what Nav's saying here is that it might not be profitable for a couple of years. You know, if I were to start a business today, I don't know if that would be the case. Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, starting a business at that time looked a lot differently. There was less AI available, less tools for small business owners. You had to take on a bigger risk in terms of inventory. But it seems like now everything's like changed where you actually should be profitable. I think if you're looking into a business venture, I don't think you take the same approach as a decade ago where it's like you're going to have to eat poop for a couple of years and then you might start making some money. It's like, no, if you can't make money right off the bat with your business, I wouldn't be doing it right now, because you should find a business that is profitable day one. We have the technology, the tools, and the supply chains now that allow for that, more of an in-time kind of thing versus buying a bunch of inventory and hope it sells and hopefully turning a profit in a couple of years. It's a little bit different now, I think.
I don't know if you could be profitable from day one. I feel like that would be nearly impossible, no?
Oh yeah.
It depends what you're doing, I guess.
If there's any sort of expense to it, like,
Yeah.
maybe, starting a YouTube channel, maybe there's no expense if you already have a phone, you have a camera, you have internet, like you're paying for all that already. But there's a lot of other businesses that are CapEx that have some sort of capital expenditure at the beginning. Like, a construction company, you got to buy some tools, hardware, whatever. A franchise, there's all the fees to start the franchise up. Like if you're starting going to own a Wendy's or something, some of that example. So yeah, I would also agree with Jor, though, that shouldn't be the business that you get into at this point. As a capital expense, like an expensive business to start, would not be the business to get into with Bitcoin right now. You got to be looking at things where, you don't need to have a bunch of inventory on the shelves. Maybe it's a digital store as opposed to a physical, right? Maybe you're using AI to code your software instead of hiring a bunch of software engineers to build a product or service, right? Like, there's ways of spending a lot less and starting a lot smaller and building from there. That's what I would do.
Yeah, like think about a decade ago, where you actually, for the most part, before everybody was using Zoom and everybody was online, like you would actually have to go downtown and rent an office space. And that's what usually set people so far back, because they were paying this fixed cost and they didn't have a whole lot of customers at that point. But you can start a lot of businesses now, probably like on the flip side of things now, from your house, online, using a cell phone, using the stuff that you already have. A couple examples that I have that I've kind of told people in the last little while is, like, number one, you could use AI, and we're kind of going to focus on AI today, so it's kind of organically led to this. But an example would be, you pay for like a premium version of AI, like ChatGPT or Venice or whatever it is, and you're just consistently feeding it prompts, generating images, and tailoring specific like industries. Like you could tailor like Bitcoin YouTubers. Say you could just post them to Noster for free. If somebody uses it, they could send you a zap. That's a sats flow coming in. You could set up like a $2 Patreon membership where YouTubers can go and use your stuff for free. Like that's something that you could do today with $50 and actually turn that into something that's like a very low risk thing that you could increase your sats flow with. Stuff like that. Like there's a ton of different things. The world is pretty much up for grabs right now for anybody who's wanting to put in the time and to learn how to do it. That's kind of my take on it.
What Between the Buds said there was great. Keep your 9 to 5, start your business structure, slow cook while stacking stats until you're ready to leave your job.
Yep.
I think that's kind of what I did. I started posting on Instagram before I left my job. I left my job after I had gotten to maybe 5,000 or 3,000 subscribers on Instagram. And then from there, I think that beginning is the hardest part. Just getting the ball rolling. It's like that the
snowball effect. Oh yeah.
Snowball effect, flywheel effect. Once you start pushing in the beginning, it's going to be really difficult, but over time it becomes easier and easier. And now I'm making more money than I made it's not that much, but I'm making more money than I made all of 2022. So
nice.
It grows over time. It'll continue to grow. And eventually I think it'll cover your expenses. And I mean, that's really what you want a business to do, right? You want it to cover your expenses.
Yeah.
Great point, Rajat. Yeah. And I think that, if that's your focus, if you're really focused on sovereignty, freedom, freeing up time in your life, giving yourself more flexibility to, use the time as you want to, I think that that's the approach that you should be taking. Yes, it might be painful for a while. Yes, you might get a little bit less Bitcoin off the start, but you're creating something in your life. You're building something in your life. And if you focus on sats flow instead of cash flow, depending on what business it is, obviously you need some cash flow, but like if you focus on those sats and understand what those are going to be worth in 5, 10, 15 years from now, and you're actually finding ways to generate that, I think that that's going to be bigger than anything else you could build in fiat land right now.
I saw this post on Reddit of this little kid. He was like 12 years old. He was selling 3D printed little toys to his friends. It was so crazy. I was just thinking, like, that's genius for a 12-year-old to do that. Wow. But
Yeah.
that's the ambition, right? I had a client who booked a one-on-one meeting with me, and he was 21, and he was making $10,000 a month from editing other people's videos.
Nice.
So he probably went on YouTube. He searched for how to do this, how to do that. He's doing it for a couple years. He has his own YouTube channel, but if you think about it, for a 21-year-old to have that ambition, he actually dropped out of school to do this. So for a 21-year-old to have that ambition, anybody could do that, right? If you're older, you might have even more ambition than him because you want to get out of a job that you hate. So I think the key here is just starting. I think don't even think. I feel like thinking about these questions is important, but thinking about them too much, it just stops you from doing what you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agree with that strongly. Good segment there, boys. I think we should do more of that because it's super interesting to me. I think that is, the future. It's where things are moving to, where people will actually be their own boss. So we're having some issues here, boys. Our Coinos I've been trying to bring up, but it keeps saying that it's timed out. So the Coinos network must be down at this time. So
they are. Yeah.
Are they? Oh,
it's on their side. They probably had a DDoS attack or something. They'll be back up though. It's only a 2-person team, so
yeah,
they're working on it, I'm sure.
The sats will arrive. If you sent some sats, thank you. I haven't. I'm not ignoring you. They're just down right now. So in the meantime, if you want to send some value this way to Maple Bitcoin, you can use Maple Bitcoin at speed.app. That's our backup one. Should always have backups of everything, even Maple Bitcoin Lightning wallets there. So look at this. Here's a nice thing from Shinku. Rajat, you're the man.
It's nice.
We got to stack as much as possible before takeoff. What are your thoughts, Rajat?
Agreed. 100%. I'm the man.
Yes, agreed as well. Rajat is the man.
Okay, boys. Well, it's kind of hard to transition from this. I think we could do like a full, 6-hour show on that. But I think the next thing that we should talk about here, we shared a video earlier this week talking about the tier list of assets. I don't know if everybody had a chance to watch that or not. It was a fun one to make. It was a little bit longer than we had anticipated.
It was
had a couple debates on there. But one of the things that really stood out in terms of reading through the YouTube comments was Tesla. There's a lot of Tesla lovers that watch the channel here. So I figured we could spend a couple minutes here talking about why we decided to put gold. That was the big question mark from people. Why is gold in a higher asset tier than Tesla? So who wants to start the conversation here?
You want to start for us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the thing is when you're looking at investments, you have to evaluate risk and reward. There is more reward potential to Tesla than there is to gold's price, but there's more risk with Tesla. What happens if there are robo-taxis? What if Waymo is a better option for robo-taxis? What if Figure One is better than Optimus? What if they end up just being a car company? I mean, people just assume, people bake in. I mean, that's why their PE ratio is like in the hundreds plus on Tesla. They just assume these things are going to work out because they have had a lot of success beating the odds with the electric car company in the past. They've been phenomenal at that. But an electric car company is not a very good company, to be honest. So that's why they push for things like AI, robo-taxis, Optimus, robots. These are much more profitable businesses to be in. So they're trying to skew their investors into thinking that's possible, and 100% it's totally possible, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? 100% possibility of something isn't 100% that it happens. What's that, Rajat?
I don't think their PE ratio can go much higher, right? It's like like how people say, MicroStrategy's PE ratio can't, or their MNAV can't go past 2 or something. We shouldn't invest in it. But when you're looking at Tesla, their PE ratio is like 160.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's insane.
160.
No, it isn't.
They don't make that much money. That's why their PE is like that, because they don't make that much revenue.
I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
I think we should actually take a couple minutes here before we get it further into Tesla. And I think it's worth noting here, like what the PE ratio is. Why do people actually own stocks? I think that the world's kind of lost their minds in that sense. Like, Like, for real, why do people actually own stocks? What are you putting your money towards there? Like, what's the point? Can we explain PE ratio a little bit here? Because this is something that I was completely unfamiliar with for the first 35 years of my life. And when I learned about it, I was like, this doesn't make any sort of sense.
So PE is, go ahead, Forrest.
No. You go ahead, Rajat.
I was going to say PE stands for price to earnings ratio. So what it is basically the market price of the stock divided by how much earnings they have per year per share. So the higher that number is, basically the longer it takes for the company to make back the revenue, to make back the money that you're investing in terms of revenue. So let's say if it's 160 in this case, we expect that eventually Tesla's earnings will go up. So we're expecting that maybe the PE ratio will come down over time. And let's say in the case of Tesla, their PE ratio is at 160 right now. We might get our money back in, let's say, 110 years, right? Or 105 years.
100% of it, right?
Sorry?
100% of the money.
100% of the money. But then it's based on the growth in inflation. They're beating inflation. If they can't beat inflation, then you're never going to get your money back.
Yeah. So a lot of that PE is they're not expecting Tesla to only continue making that same amount of money because of that high price the high PE. That is baking in a huge amount of growth. They're saying this company is going to grow into this ratio of price to earnings.
Right.
So that's something to be considered because all stocks you're evaluating on future potential. You're investing in this stock now, thinking the future potential of it is greater than what it is now, even with inflation, money debasement, and everything that you should evaluate in as a metric. But that's a huge thing to grow into. And like I said, there's a lot of risks. There's a lot of potential.
I think eventually that's going to fall to like 15, 20, right? I'm guessing that's what would happen because that's the average for the S&P.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could fall or Tesla could grow into it, right? It's kind of the same as MNAV with MSTR, where MSTR's MNAV compresses down when people are selling and they think there's not as much growth in it, or they stack more Bitcoin and it actually raises it. So it's sort of this compression that happens on up and down, which is the same thing that happens with PE.
Yeah, I just think that that's such an important thing to understand because I feel like most people's journey into like investing is like maybe they get a retirement account at work, they start paying attention a little bit. They just kind of see the stock market as just like this big machine that sometimes works, sometimes it's like a lottery almost, but it's like you're actually buying like a percentage of a company, hoping that they actually turn a profit, which they can return to you one day. Essentially, but nobody really thinks about that. Nobody looks at the math objectively and says, okay, well, how much, is the company worth? What's their earnings today? How many shareholders do they have? What percentage of that earnings do I get? Nobody really does the math on that. And I think that that's where everybody should really start, is looking at the PE ratio. I mean, Tesla's a little bit of different, I would say. They're very much focused on the future. That's why kind of like the NVIDIAs are up there, the Microsofts, they're kind of locked into the technology side of things. But the big risk with Tesla for me, I love Tesla. I love Elon. They're kind of like the only Mag 7 company who's actually holding Bitcoin. But the reason why I think gold over Tesla for somebody who's, a true investor, I should say, is because Tesla makes things. They are a technology company who makes things. So if the demand for Tesla products went astronomical, they could just make more products. And those robots are probably just going to make more and more products. And eventually the prices of those products, because of the nature of that industry, the prices of those products are going to come down over time in Bitcoin terms, maybe not in fiat terms, but in real terms. And so, yes, it's great to think that Elon's, going to be around forever. But somebody mentioned in the comments too, what if Elon dies? What if Saylor dies? I think both of those companies would look completely different. And if you look at what happened with Apple when Steve Jobs died, that company sure took a nosedive after their heartbeat left the company there. So it's a risk. And that's the point of what we were talking about there, is like these other options have risks. Like they have a CEO. Gold doesn't have a CEO. Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO. And that's kind of the point I think that we were trying to prove with that. So
yeah, I mean, technology companies are always fighting against the deflation that is natural within technology, where their margins are always going to go down because it becomes easier and easier with technology to produce what they're producing, which is technology. Whereas something like gold is the exact opposite. It's a scarce asset. Bitcoin, even a way better example, of course, but we're comparing it to gold. Gold actually benefits from a deflationary environment because it's scarce and semi-verifiably. The other thing that we didn't touch on there was the gold being a bearer instrument. You can actually own it. With Tesla, again, any stock that you own, you know, Jory, you mentioned you're kind of buying into this, expecting future returns to be given back to you. There could be a time when Tesla, I mean, how are they going to return any money to you? Like they're going to start paying a dividend, right? Like that's sort of what ends up happening with companies is they start paying a dividend. They're just paying back people out of the value of their stock, but they could just never pay a dividend. And then the only way to get your money out of that is to sell it to somebody else. And then what is it that they're buying? They're buying ownership of a company that never plans to pay you back anything. I don't know. It just starts looking a little bit like Fugazi, you know, nothing there.
yes.
With stocks. But you know, that's just my opinion.
And that's the thing we got to keep in mind here too. Like the thing was based on performance, future. But I think it's important to know, like for me personally, like if I had $5,000 right now, I would probably put that $5,000 into Tesla. But that doesn't mean it's a better asset, right? That's just like me short term based on what else I have right now in terms of Bitcoin. I'm okay taking a gamble there because I still have Bitcoin over here that I know I'm going to have at the end of the day. But for people who have like 100% of their portfolios into this Fugazi and are really counting on Elon to live up to their expectations, you know, I think that there's going to be a lot of people who suffer the opportunity cost of not storing it in Bitcoin or gold. But overall, I don't know. I like Tesla.
I think it's really crazy for people to compare companies like NVIDIA to Bitcoin or Tesla to Bitcoin because they have so many more risks. Like you can't put all of your portfolio in either of those companies, but I think you could get away with putting your entire portfolio in Bitcoin.
Oh, good point, Rajat. Good point.
Yeah. It has way less risks.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe expand on that, Rajat, just so we can kind of get inside your brain here for a sec.
So the way that I see it, Bitcoin is a global asset. Anybody in the world can access it. Anybody in the world can save everything that they have in Bitcoin, while not everybody can access Tesla or NVIDIA. So Tesla and NVIDIA have a lot more risks associated with them. For example, you have equity risk where just the company could fail. Mm-hmm. You have market risk. You have regulatory risk. You have risks with your CEOs. There's all kinds of risks with stocks that you don't have with Bitcoin. So when you hold Bitcoin, you can actually put your entire portfolio in it because you know that it's not just going to go to zero all of a sudden because of some decision that somebody made. You're not relying your life savings aren't reliant on one person. On the other hand, with these stocks, they are.
Yeah, the way I would sum part of that up is I hate to use these terms because they need to be expanded on, but the way I look at it kind of is Bitcoin is a risk-off asset that performs like a risk-on asset, whereas Tesla is just a risk-on asset.
Yeah, everything that Tesla is doing is in the future. We have no idea if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's what risk is.
Yep.
That's speculation.
Yeah, and I just think that. Sorry, Rajat, go ahead.
I was going to say, in the meantime, while they're working on it, somebody else can come in and disrupt what they're doing. Do the exact same, but better, right? You can't do that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the discovery of digital scarcity. It can't be disrupted.
A lot of it too is like, I don't know, Tesla's main business is cars right now. And that's being propped up by regulation within the countries that they operate in. If there was no tariffs, which is regulation for China, the US and North America, Canada, we would all be driving BYDs. They're so cheap and they're just as good as Teslas, like, you know, on a lot of metrics. Like we would just do that because the market would just choose, hey, I'm going to get something that is almost as good for a fraction of the price. And the only reason people aren't doing that here in North America is because of regulations. And what's stopping a government from changing a regulation? Enough lobbyists come in, enough money comes in, some trades hands. Let's change the law. Let's make it easier. BYD all of a sudden takes over. They've taken over other markets that don't have the regulations that we have.
I think that Tesla, strategy, NVIDIA, whatever you want to call it, I think that if you're holding any sort of your allocation in those companies, you're basically, to me, and I'm okay with it. And I've actually recently changed my mind a little bit. I've started to allocate a little bit more towards Strategy's Strike product, thinking about my retirement in the future. Because I have some Bitcoin. I kind of know where everything's going here, or I think anyways, but that's kind of like my hedge into the existing system carrying on a little bit longer in terms of like the financial system. I know it's a black hole being sucked over to strategy, but whether it's Tesla, NVIDIA, strategy, you're kind of placing your chips in the sense that the world's going to look similar at that time, when I don't know if it is. I think in a decade from now, whether it's industry, government, whatever it is, Bitcoin's going to outlive all of these things. And I think that that's why it should be your biggest allocation. And then you can place a few small bets over here into Tesla, into strategy, into Strike, things like that, kind of like longing the system as it is today, but knowing that regardless of what happens, regardless of who wins the election, regardless of what regulations are in place, Bitcoin is so different in that regard. And I think that that's why everybody should focus. The main focus of your portfolio should be in Bitcoin, and then just kind of build on top of that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, that's good discussion there, boys. I think we'll probably clip that and mention Tesla so we can get some more shit from the community here.
Some fanboy hate.
So we get another super chat here. Some euros. McCour. Hello, guys. Thanks and love from my heart to your content. Wow. I had luck. Just received 100K 2 months ago. Bought a whole coin. Thanks to you, Rajat.
Wow.
Nice.
That's amazing.
I wonder what the price was 2 months ago. Probably a good entry.
Man, how does that feel, Rajat? That's got to feel pretty good.
That's the power of this content, though, right? All of us have probably impacted a lot of people, even if people have had, let's say they had 0.1 Bitcoin to begin with. Some of us, maybe they read some of our content or they watched some of what we said and they doubled that to 0.2 Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Right. And there's a lot of people who don't say this. So
tons.
It's happening. And I think creating more content, if you're in the audience, create your own content, help people. This is so fulfilling. Like just seeing people build this stack of Bitcoin based on the content that we put out. It's way more fulfilling than working a job.
Well put. It's so fulfilling. Yeah. It's great knowing that, a lot, I've been accused of like, posting this stuff. People say, oh, you're just trying to pump your bags. It's like, no, dude, my bags are pumped. I'm good. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to save you, man.
Yeah.
I'm trying to save you from the charlatans out there that want your money and want to extract it from you, whether it's the Federal Reserve, central bank, or the crypto cabal out there minting their own coins and extracting value from you. Bitcoin is the only neutral savings technology out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's something special happening right now around the world. And I think that most people are kind of oblivious to it. But if you look at the community here, the people who have showed up here, we got 350 people watching on YouTube alone right now.
Wow.
If you look at the community being built with Maple Bitcoin here, if you look at the community for all three of our channels, people like Jerry Loves Freedom. I watch his show pretty much every night. I've seen Forrest in the chat there a couple times, but he shows a map and he shows all the different people around the world who are essentially turning the green lights on, who are Bitcoiners. And that's just going to keep going up. And something really big is happening right now. And one thing I would say, I see some people in the chat here, like Joe. You don't have to have anything fancy anymore. We live in a world now where you could literally turn on record, press record with the phone that you already have, and just start talking. And it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the less perfect it is, the better. That's how I see it anyways. That's the people that I relate to. It doesn't have to be fancy editing or graphics or anything like that. Just start talking, tell your story, talk about Bitcoin, why you think it's important to the world, and the people are going to find you. And within this community alone, in the last couple of weeks, there's been 3 or 4 people start a YouTube channel, and that's people pushing the right message about Bitcoin. And then they're going to tell 10 more people, and a couple of them might start a channel, and they're going to tell 100 more people. And that's how this thing is going to grow. So like, don't sit there and make excuses. Like, you have the abilities to do this today, and don't expect to have 100,000 subscribers in a year, but just start doing it. You have to start somewhere. And for real, there's something happening here. I can feel it.
Yeah, you're more powerful than you realize. You have more ability to influence the world in a positive way. But I mean, we can all agree. I mean, a huge part of my reason for getting into Bitcoin is the ethics of Bitcoin. And I think it's powerful. I think it can really help the world in such meaningful ways. And that's my main motivation for spreading this information, is trying to help the world. And yeah, we can all have a voice. We're all individuals. We can all come at it from our own story, our own perspective, and we could maybe reach other people. And this is, yeah, I mean, whether you do that or not, I mean, it's great if you do, but this is happening. Like, all of us are doing it. There's new Bitcoiners formed every single minute, every single day. You're going to end up, some normies are going to end up getting, a burger at Steak and Shake and be like, there's a Bitcoin symbol. Oh, what the? I thought Bitcoin died years ago. What the hell? Look into it. Become Bitcoiners from a burger stand. Like, it's going to change the game. It's accelerating. The network effects are accelerating.
And you don't necessarily need to create Bitcoin content. If you're not confident making Bitcoin content, that's perfectly fine. You can talk about other stuff as well, right? Just talk about things that help people. I think that really helps. If you have a skill, let's say you know how to learn, you know how to use Chat GPT really well, you know how to make prompts, that's a great channel to start. You can go so deep, you can go so niche into something like that. I feel like that's something that could change a lot of people's lives as well.
Yeah.
And you can focus on that industry. And if you know that industry, you're going to add value to people's lives. And the people who are listening to you, they're going to respect your opinion on things. And that's kind of when you might start introducing Bitcoin into the conversation then. Maybe it starts as like a plumbing channel or a plumbing account, but it evolves and say, hey, I'm accepting Bitcoin now. And you might have 1 or 2 people ask about it. And then you can start sharing it. If you see that there's a little bit of interest there, then people will find you. And I think that that's the other thing too, is that I've been telling people is like, you don't have to do anything crazy here. One thing I've been sharing is like, just go throughout your day. If you're still somebody who's working like a 9-to-5 job, whether you're an electrician, a plumber, a realtor, whatever it is, you carry your phone on you all day. That phone that you have in your pocket has one of the best cameras that has ever existed. And it's the best camera. People used to pay tens of thousands of dollars for the quality that you have in your phone right now. Take a picture. Take a picture, even if you think it's like just another day for you. Take a picture of something that you think, other people might enjoy. And then when you get home that night, take that picture, add a little bit of context to it, and post it on something like Nostr or Twitter or YouTube. And people are going to find you. Like, whatever you're doing right now, whatever you're skilled at, there's other people who could use your advice, whatever the industry that is. So you could just take pictures for free. You're already doing that. Take 20 minutes when you get home every night. Add some context to it. This is a crazy, toilet I came across today. This is how I fixed it. It was actually pretty simple. And then, it's out there. And if somebody enjoys that on Nostr, they can send you 100 sats. And if you hold on to those 100 sats for the next 20 years, that's going to be worth something substantial. And if you do that every day for the next couple of years, that's how this thing really compounds. That's how you make a dent in this thing.
Yeah, the micropayment system that Lightning has and Nostr has implemented is next level. And it kind of gets into a topic that Rajat wanted to talk about, which was AI. In my opinion, the implementation of Lightning and the ability to easily create wallets, easily transact for next to no cost, internet natively, is going to just change the game for AI bots. But there's a lot. I mean, AI is the other technology, in my opinion, that is interesting. I'd say less so interesting than Bitcoin, but it's it's up there with my personal interest. Do you guys want to talk about some AI stuff with Bitcoin at all?
I
Yes.
feel like even AI can be disrupted. No, like with DeepSeek, for example. I think they completely changed how people think of Chat GPT. I think even AI, it's great. It's good to learn about. It's great to investigate in, but it's not. I wouldn't consider it an investment. I think, or even a savings account, because it can be replicated.
It's rapidly deflationary down to
Yes.
its cost of production, which is just going down like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
DeepSeek, as far as what I know, it was developed on models, databases, instead of like using the whole internet's database. So it was able to like synthesize already synthesized data,
Oh, wow.
essentially, and
So it's
therefore
compounding, basically.
and used a lot less GPUs because of that, and cost a lot less. It was also open source, which is interesting too, and it was made by some Chinese like hedge fund or something. But yeah, I think it's going to be just easier and easier to implement these it's just going to get cheaper and cheaper to produce these AIs. Like, I don't know how much they're incredibly useful. They're super, super useful, but I don't know how much value there's going to be in like investing in them. I think there's going to be a lot of like speculation.
A lot of losses.
Yeah, a lot of losses. It almost seems similar to like the .com or even like the railroads of like the early stock market. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's just not going to happen that people are going to say AI is going to do.
I don't know if you guys saw, but Amazon has their own AI now on their product. If you go to their products, they have a description, or sorry, they have a summary of all the comments.
Oh yeah, I
I
have
thought
seen
that was
that.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
But again,
summary of the review.
It's replicating itself, right? It's going to be everywhere. So at some point, it's not even going to be tech anymore. It's just going to be normal.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that that's the theme. I think that that's, if I was listening to this right now on the other end of this, and hearing Tesla and AI and stuff like this, the one thing that you really need to keep in mind over this next decade is, when you look at anything as an option, ask yourself, if that becomes super popular, if there's a lot of people who want to use this, can they make more of it?
Yeah.
Can you make more of this? And the answer to pretty much everything on the planet, except Bitcoin, is yes. If demand goes up, especially with technology increasing now, they can just make more of it. And so as a store of value, as an investment, that's the question that you have to ask when you're allocating your capital. If there's a bunch of people who want to use this, if the demand rises for this product or service, can they make more of it? And the answer is yes. Then you probably don't want to store your value in that. You're going to lose to Bitcoin, because you cannot, regardless of how much demand exists for Bitcoin, we cannot create more of it. It is stuck in time. It is stuck in the future. So I think that's a really big thing that we need to drill home in our own minds. And I think for the people who follow our stuff here.
Yeah, and I think people really don't understand that scarcity aspect of it. And the way I want to try to frame it is, there's sort of this idea of like discovered oil reserves in the world. And people have always talked, like for 20 years, people are saying, oh, there's going to be like a scarcity event where there's not enough oil because this is as much as we've discovered. But the thing is there's no incentive for oil developers to go discover more when they're extracting as much as they need and selling it. And then as they deplete that, then they'll go and discover more. And those proven oil reserves around the world have basically kept stagnant for like 20 years now, because they find more as they need them, and it's a lot more abundant than that metric alone makes it appear. And the same goes for anything else. Like gold, I would say, is the same. We've dug we've scratched the surface of the crust of the earth. If we developed some technology to allow us to dig way deeper to mine gold, we would find tons of more reserves of gold. So I think it's sort of almost like a falsity, the scarcity aspect of everything else besides Bitcoin, because it's the only thing with absolute true scarcity, because it's digital and it's enforced through consensus.
Yeah, 100%. Great point. I think that the energy itself, gold, oil, has very been manipulated for a lot of years for those who control the world. They make people believe that it's scarce, but it's not.
Yes, exactly.
Bitcoin reply girl, $6.99 Canadian. Thank you. Number one, Bitcoin and TFSAs or just Bitcoin and pay cap gains?
You can't really hold Bitcoin in TFSAs. You can only hold Bitcoin IOUs in TFSAs or Bitcoin derivatives through companies. So yeah, I mean, there's kind of a nuance there. I mean, maybe you could hold Bitcoin and not pay capital gains if you don't sell it until we get rid of cap gains on Bitcoin. That's kind of what I'm doing, right? I'm just holding it until I'm going to wait out the government, man. I'm going to wait until they don't have cap gains on it.
I think I think both of them have their place. Like with Bitcoin and TFSAs, I'd normally say, oh, Bitcoin just cold storage only. But I think both of them have their place because if, let's say, you plan to buy Bitcoin and then you think that Bitcoin is going to be it's going to be at you're going to be financially free with the Bitcoin that you have in your TFSA in 10 years, you might as well put some in there. That way you can sell some in the short term and then you can use it for your expenses. I think that if there's a collapse, it's going to take longer than that. So that Bitcoin that you get that you stack, you're probably going to be able to use it in your life. And plus you get that added bonus of not having to pay taxes.
I agree. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Rajat. I think there is the TFSA is really actually quite a good account as far as registered accounts go. So yeah, if you can take advantage of it, there is the component of it's an IOU, it's not real Bitcoin, and you do have to trust it. There is an expense ratio, but yeah, I mean the Bitcoin's going to appreciate like crazy, and if you can live off of that TFSA to some degree because of the Bitcoin allocation in there, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it also depends on when you plan on spending that Bitcoin. If you do, like if you're buying things for the long term, it makes way more sense to just take self-custody of it, lock it up, and it's there. It's yours. There's no risk. You don't have to lose any sleep over it at night. But let's say that you had an expense coming up in a year from now, and we're at this exact moment in time. Let's say that I knew that next winter, I'm going to need some new tires. One thing I would do, and this is where I could utilize the TFSA, is I could put like $2,000 into that account, like a Bitcoin ETF or into strategy or something like that. And then in a year from now, based on my knowledge and my, of Bitcoin, I think that in a year from now, that $2,000 might be $3,000 or $4,000 or even more. And so I could very easily in 5 minutes without having to worry about any sort of tax consequences or finding, an exchange, whatever. You could just sell that TFSA, sell the ETF, sell the strategy. In short term for things like that, if you can time it properly, if you're well educated enough to do that and things go your way, it does make sense for me. But if you're looking at it as like a long-term investment, I think 100% it makes more sense in self-custody.
Yeah.
Good question though. Oh, there's another one here. Interesting topic. Why you think volatility will go up instead of leveling out to the S&P?
I think because Bitcoin has that inelastic supply. Nobody can change the supply. The S&P 500, there are institutions who have tons of it, and if they wanted to, they can kind of smooth out the volatility. But with Bitcoin, I don't think anybody has a big enough chunk to do that.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Is yes, if it just like we were talking about before, if there's more demand for a company or a product, or the company that's making those products, they could just issue more shares. That's how the volatility throughout the years has always kind of flatlined. As soon as demand catches up with supply, as soon as the supply catches up with demand, they can just create more of it. And that's how everything's kind of equalized through the years. And that's what makes Bitcoin so different, is that we can't do that now. Irregardless of the demand, you cannot create more Bitcoin. And that's what makes it different. That's what makes it so volatile. And so hard to predict what's going to happen next because of that.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people predicting that Bitcoin's volatility will go down. And it's sort of like, if you look at the historical performance, you can see that that's actually has been the case. It has sort of started to level out on volatility, but we're still really early in this. And if there is some sort of repricing event, I mean, what's that going to do but just create a huge amount of demand for Bitcoin, which would accelerate the volatility back beyond what we've seen before, even with the market cap size being much larger and needing more funds to affect the volatility of it. We could still see that because there is a lot of capital out there that is misallocated to Bitcoin. But I mean, eventually it could level out compared to everything else and become much more stable. And then, but that's when it becomes basically the denominator against everything else. So there's kind of arguments for both sides. I don't know. Right now, I could see the volatility of Bitcoin continuing to be lower than it has been in the past, but then certain events causing it to spike way higher than we've ever seen. That's my thought on volatility.
Agreed. Sounds like we're on the same page there. So we actually have a record amount of people watching right now. And funny thing is, I was just on YouTube and Rabbit Hole Recaps on right now as well. So I wasn't going to tell you because I don't want you to leave here, but it's pretty cool that we have a record amount of people watching at this time. So I just shared, I know there's a lot of people on Rajat's channel, Forest channels, 88 Sats radio channel, but we do have a channel of our own, Maple Bitcoin. So if you're not a subscriber there yet, just take a couple seconds here as we kind of go through a few comments. And if you don't mind, if you've been enjoying our stuff, if you've been getting value from it, if you want to support the channel, just head over there and subscribe. We would really appreciate that. And speaking of appreciation, we got a couple new members here. Paul Paco, new member. Recon Graves, new member. I don't know where they're signing up for or what it is, but
that's my channel. It looks like, yeah. Appreciate the new members. Thanks, guys.
There you go.
There's another question, by the way, that we haven't answered.
I was getting to that. Yep. Just I want to say, where was the other one I saw? It was a super chat, right?
Yeah, Leandro.
Yeah, in yellow.
Leandro.
Got her.
Yeah.
So the question or the super chat, I don't know what the R is there. Do you guys know? Russian rubles, maybe?
I'm not sure.
Not sure either.
Estrada. That sounds like a Spanish name. Anyways, Leandro Estrada. Regarding Buffett's retirement, Saylor put it so well. In the 60s and 70s, it didn't matter how great the old jazz musicians were from the 20s or 30s. It took young guys to create Led Zeppelin. Maybe we should spend a couple of seconds here. I did a video on my channel the other day talking about Saylor and Buffett and how I think that people are missing like the official transition from the 20th century investments to the new world investments. That was kind of the shift that happened this week. But that's a great point by Saylor. I mean, he has such a good way of wording things and helping people kind of visualize what's happening here. But what do you guys think about strategy world, about Buffett's retirement, about, does Saylor have the ability now? I know it's kind of like we're looking pretty far into the future here, but does Saylor have the opportunity to be Warren Buffett iconic in the future?
100%, in my opinion. Also, these are Brazilian real by the looks of it.
Oh, cool.
In the chat. Yeah, so it's really put really well by her. It took young people to create Led Zeppelin. There's this idea where real change takes generations. It really happens by new people coming into the world and old people phasing out of the physical world, right? That's how change happens. And Warren Buffett is 94 years old. And, Saylor is also relatively old, but, and Warren Buffett had a lot of success throughout his entire career, but likely similar ages when Warren Buffett was really in his like prime heyday of everyone knowing who he was and being like the main successful representation of like Wall Street success. And investing success, right? When I grew up, I always knew, Warren Buffett is the greatest investor. You'd look at, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs as the best business people in the world, right? Created the best business, but Warren Buffett was the best investor. And I think something like that is going to happen to Saylor. Saylor is going to be the best allocator to Bitcoin as a corporation. He already is, but it's just going to become more recognized by the public. And it does take these generational shifts for massive change like that to happen. And those old jazz musicians, they didn't know, technically they could learn how to play a Led Zeppelin song. It's not like it was more complicated than what they were doing, but they didn't know how to create that because they knew how to create jazz music instead in the 20s and 30s. They didn't have that in them because it takes new generations sometimes to really shift things. creatively.
Yeah, you build on everything that you learned from before. Like, let's say if electricity didn't exist, the internet wouldn't exist. If the internet didn't exist, Bitcoin wouldn't exist.
Yes.
Everything builds on top of everything else. So I think this is a really great analogy here, where the newer artists haven't stolen the older content, but they've built on it. They've used samples, for example, and they've made it better.
I think it goes back to the need to know, right? Like if you're a jazz musician in the 20s or 30s, and that's kind of what you've done, and everybody knows you already, and that's what you do. You show up and play gigs, and people love it. Do you need to know how to learn rock music when you're 80 years old or 90 years old? You don't really need to know at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
I think that's what Saylor's been trying to drive home here at the strategy world. But on Buffett, my theory is that if Warren Buffett was transported into today from the 60s when he first got started, I think that he would 100% be a Bitcoiner. And I want to share some quotes with you guys. There's 4 that I have here talking about this fact, because I just think that it's so relevant to Bitcoin. I changed the words slightly in them. But the first quote from Buffett is rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule 1. So that to me sounds very similar to like one of the catchphrases in Bitcoin. The second one here is, if you aren't willing to own an asset for 10 years, don't think about owning it for 10 minutes. And I think that that's such great advice within Bitcoin itself, is like, don't get into this expecting that you're going to buy today and sell it in a month from now and retire. If you're not going to hold on to this asset for 4 years, don't even bother with it. So in this case, Buffett said 10 years, but you could apply that same for 4 years within Bitcoin. This is a big one though. And this is exactly where we are right now, I think. Buffett said, big opportunities come infrequently. When it's raining gold, reach for a bucket, not a thimble.
That's a great quote, man. Buffett kills it with the quotes.
But it's so applicable to Bitcoin too, right? Like all of these. And this one especially. The rear view mirror is always clearer than the windshield. How many people watching the stream right now wish that they would have went a little bit harder into Bitcoin when they first found out about it, when they first started studying, instead of waiting and procrastinating and dipping your toes into it? So yeah, looking back, hindsight, even with this bull cycle, I think people have their predictions that some people think it might go down a little bit further. But when this happens and we're looking back, we're going to say, man, it was so obvious. The president of the United States was talking about this. Larry Fink was talking about this. It could not have been more obvious back in 2025 what was going to happen. And
I've said that so many times. Oh, sorry. I've just said that so many times about Bitcoin already in my investing or my Bitcoin journey. I've just been like, looking at charts even, I'm just like, the chart patterns are so obvious. Everything, the macro, it's so obvious. And there's people have been saying that we're going into a bear market, that, we topped, and it's just like, it's so clear we haven't, in my opinion. But it's very hard to tell people that, and it'll be much easier with hindsight.
Yeah, 100%. And that's I feel like exactly what we're living through right now. And the last one here from Buffett is, the market is designed to transfer money from the active to the patient.
The weighing machine, right? In the long term. Yeah.
And
it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, if any Bitcoiners who have been around for at least one cycle, the one thing that they would say, everybody's tried to do it. They probably dab their toes into some crypto stuff. They've tried to, sell when Bitcoin's gone up and then try to get in more, get more sats. It never works for me anyways. I've always ended up just with less shares of strategy or less sats that I had before. I created all this stress in my life, and it's just better to just hold on, be patient. And those are Buffett's principles, and they all relate so well to Bitcoin here.
Yeah. Nice.
So thank you for that super chat there.
We got another 5 minutes in the chat here. Does that work for you guys?
Hour and a half already.
Yeah.
Crazy. Recon Graves. I've been looking into how power load shedding works for a lot of power plants, and I'm looking at Bitcoin also as an extremely large battery. Can you elaborate on these two fields if they converge?
I was trying to look at that question. I didn't quite understand it.
So basically power load shedding is like when an operator that is using a lot of power from the grid can shut down to supply that energy for the grid to supply that energy elsewhere where it's needed.
Is that
So
balancing the grid?
yes, that's
Okay.
balancing the grid. It's called power load shedding is how they balance the grid. And typically in the past, there has been big electricity users like not power plants, those are generators, like, smelters, for instance, like an aluminum smelter. But when they shut down operations, it takes a long time for them to shut it down. And then they only have a certain amount of time before they ruin a batch of aluminum to be able to be shut down before they have to ramp up again. And there's a recovery. So they lose a lot of heat from their batch of smelting. And then when they ramp up, there's a lot of inefficiency of trying to heat that back up after having cooled. Whereas Bitcoin can power load shed really, really quick. Bitcoin miners can. They can literally turn a switch off, and all of the proof of work or the compute or the hashing that they've done, they just didn't hit a block for that time. So there's nothing wasted. They had their attempt up until that switch was flicked. And then when there's the electricity in the grid available again, they can turn that switch back on, power right up, immediately connect to the server, connect to their node, and start hashing again without any problem. Now, the one thing about that is the Bitcoin miners don't really act like a large battery. It's kind of the exact opposite of a battery, actually. They work as demand or not demand. Whereas a battery can act as demand to charge the battery, but it can also act as supply to the grid by discharging the battery and applying that to the grid. So Bitcoin miners don't have the ability to supply energy in a sense of being a positive to the grid, but they have the ability to supply energy by being neutral to the grid, by shutting down, if that makes sense. So you could kind of think of it like a battery, but it's not a complete analogy, in my opinion.
I think that once you get into Bitcoin, your whole mentality around everything changes. Like my mentality around energy has changed so much from learning about Bitcoin. But that's the thing, is like people think that Bitcoin is bad for the environment and then they use a lot of energy. When somebody sets up a Bitcoin miner in a town, they build out their energy grid to be more robust. Right. So that initial investment that the Bitcoin miner makes builds out their power grid, which is what you want. But as Forrest alluded to there, if the town really needs that power, the Bitcoin mine can just flip a switch and shut down. And all of a sudden the town has access to that energy that they would have never had before the Bitcoin mining company was there. So yes, absolutely. Like I think it makes so much sense. And I think that that's the world that we're moving into. Is I forget the term for it, but it's a flexible load. I think you can use with Bitcoin, flexible load power. And in terms of an extremely large battery, that's exactly how I think about Bitcoin. I think I don't know what the context is here, but Bitcoin to me is the best battery in history because it's the best place to store your time and energy. Whatever value you provide to the world, if you get sats in return for that, you put those sats into a Sparrow wallet with a cold card as a signing device, those sats will look the exact same in 100 years from now. There's zero leaks to that battery. So I don't know if that's what we were alluding to here, but I think of Bitcoin as a battery, as the world's most powerful battery in terms of storing people's time and energy.
I think that was what Recon was actually pointing to. I sort of misinterpreted that as Bitcoin miners being an extremely large battery. But when you think of Bitcoin being thermodynamically sound and actually storing the energy that you put into it, then yeah, it's a battery, and it's the perfect battery. It's a solid state battery that never loses energy and is constantly able to hold its energy level. And if you think about, I mean, Bitcoin miners already think of electricity priced in Bitcoin, because when they have access to Bitcoin, when they have access to electricity that's costing them Bitcoin, they might be getting Bitcoin in. When they shut down, they think about the loss of Bitcoin profitability. They already think about it in terms of Bitcoin per watt. So, I mean, this is it's going to extend on that. I don't know where I was going with that, but it just makes sense that we have Bitcoin being what prices energy in the future. Not sure where I was going with that.
No, but that's what it is for us. Like it's all ties together. It measures energy. It's a unit of energy essentially. And it's the best battery for keeping it. So a couple different things here. I saw a comment that I want to discuss there quickly. Somebody said that they tried zapping the QR code there. Where is it here? Oh, Cloudflare. Yeah. So our Coinos wallet, perfect timing for the show today. The Coinos wallet goes down. But we do have backup, as everybody should. You should have a backup of everything. So if you were trying to send a zap to the show or send some sats our way, you can actually just send it to maplebitcoin@speed.app. So in your Lightning wallet, you would just go to send. You'd type that in, maplebitcoin@speed.app. I know it's a little bit less convenient than scanning a QR code, but we would appreciate it. If you were going to send some sats this way for the show today, poor timing by Coinos. I think we'll have to send them a nasty email. But do you guys have time for a couple more comments here? I saw some starred that I wanted to get to. Do you have 5 more minutes, Forrest?
Yeah, 5 minutes. I can do 5 minutes.
Okay. This was one. And I think that, as the value and purchasing power of Bitcoin goes up in the next little while, I think there's a lot of people going to be wondering this, like how soon should I be investing money into like a cold card or a Jade or something along those lines? Do you guys have thoughts on this?
I think eventually any amount of Bitcoin that you have is going to be worth a lot. So I was actually watching one of your videos on this, Jor. Any amount of Bitcoin that you have is going to be worth a lot. Even if you have, let's say, $1,000 worth today, you might think that, it's only worth $1,000. Eventually, it's going to be worth 10,000. It's going to be worth 100,000. So think of it based on the future possibilities. If you lose that Bitcoin, let's say you have 1 million Satoshis and you lose it, are you going to be pissed off at yourself when it's worth $1 million?
Yeah, you are. You are going to be pissed off at yourself. As I agree with that too, but I think that you do also kind of have to think about what you're trying to balance there is, well, either I can stack more sats or I can stack in a safer way. So those two things you kind of have to balance, and there becomes a level where it's very obvious, even in the present, that you have too much in not a secure way. And just roughly at this time, I would personally say once you have 1 million sats, like 1,000 US of Bitcoin, you should really think about like that's probably even high actually to have on an exchange or in a software wallet. But I would really at that point seriously consider, and not even seriously consider, I would just order it, start learning, reach out to somebody to help you, or just do it yourself. And I would secure that in self-custody.
Yeah.
Agree with both you guys. Actually, I filmed a video right before the show today talking about this exact kind of thing. And I basically use the example of somebody having 0.25 of a Bitcoin or 25 million sats. I think that that's a pretty good number to get to today. If you can get to 25 million sats and you hold on to that for a while, and that's what the security is about, right? It doesn't matter how much you have today. If you're not securing it properly, it's not going to do you any good in 20 years if it's gone somewhere, right? So the calculation that I ran was 25 million sats at 40% CAGR for the next 20 years. And that Bitcoin in 20 years would be worth $14.9 million of today's purchasing power. Crazy. So even though you might look at it as like $25,000 today in fiat, that's a complete illusion. It's a made up number that you should not be even looking at, truthfully. But at 40% for 20 years, that 25 million sats is going to be worth $14.9 million bucks. So I do think that whether it's 10 million sats, 2 million sats, do some objective math based on what you think Bitcoin's going to be worth. Get a spreadsheet and just see if it makes sense to spend 200 bucks on a new cold card today.
Yeah. The other thing that you have to consider is that the price of that cold card is going to decrease over time in terms of Bitcoin. So that's another trade-off that you have to make.
Right.
Yeah.
So right now it might cost you like 200,000 sats. In the future, it might cost you 50,000.
Cold card versus Trezor versus Ledger, cold card for sure.
Out of those ones, yeah, 100%. I mean, cold card is the premier wallet in my opinion. The Jade is also good. The Bitbox is good, but the cold card is better than both those in my opinion.
Yeah. Agreed.
Buck 52 says it used to be 0.5 of Bitcoin, Jor. That's what I mean. Like that's what I used to say, 0.5 of Bitcoin. I said that's when you should get into a multi-sig. But again, that number, because of the purchasing power and the increase of Bitcoin, how this thing works, it's going to go from 0.5 to 0.25 to 0.2, etc. Just like Rajat says with houses. So let's wrap her, boys. What a show today. Oh my gosh. We had a record amount of people in here. We got an all-time high, and well, not an all-time high, but we're nipping at it in fiat terms anyways. The sats you got today, if you hold on to those properly, you're going to have the exact same amount in 100 years from now. No other asset has that feature built into it. So just one more time here, folks. Remember, if you tried zapping the show today and you were unable to, you can send some sats to Maple Bitcoin at speed.app. We would very much appreciate it. Or hold out for next week, or find one of our videos and wait a couple hours. I'm sure it'll be back up. Second thing I wanted to remind people of is we do have a channel called Maple Bitcoin. I know there's a lot of people watching on different things today, but make sure you subscribe to the Maple Bitcoin channel. And we're also on Twitter. So if you want to, if you're still on X, we're on Nostr too. I don't have the NPub handy, but we're on Twitter. I'll share the link there. Do you guys have any closing thoughts for the week?
Nope. Just stack sats. Stack sats. You
okay. Well, thanks again, fellas. Thanks everybody very much for showing up today, for being part of this. And we'll see you right back here next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks, fellas.